What's up, everybody? Nate here with Privacy Guides, and as you can probably tell, this video is going to be just a little bit different. We're doing something different this time. We're doing a tier list, but we decided to jump in with a tier list video that nobody has done yet, which is password managers. Ooh. Obviously, this is not as heavily scripted. Just let us know what you think. But yeah, we're going to go in. We're going to rate, I think it's a little more than 10, somewhere between 10 and 15 of the most popular password managers out there. We're going to let you know what we think about them and where we would rank them. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you guys this, but feel free to leave your opinions in the comments, where you agree, where you disagree, and why. And with that, I think we're going to jump right in. I just dropped all these logos in here all at once, and it put them in whatever order it put them in. So I'm just going to go in that order. And our first one is Psono. Psono is one of the password managers that we do recommend on Privacy Guides. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up their website real quick. Yeah, so Psono is mostly aimed at companies and enterprise, but what's interesting is that it is designed to be self-hosted. So a lot of password managers, they're kind of designed to be software as a service, but then a lot of them do have an on-prem solution if you choose to go that route. But Psono is kind of the other way around. Yeah, see, they have a software as a service edition, including a community version, which is for individual users, but they're first and foremost designed to be on-prem, which is pretty cool. You don't see that a lot. So I think Psono, we're going to give it a B. Again, it is one of the password managers we do recommend, and there is like a free tier. There is a community edition that does not require you to self-host, but it was designed to be self-hosted. So to use it, quote unquote, the right way, you have to do that, which can be a little bit tricky if you're not used to self-hosting. Self-hosting in general comes with so many caveats, right? Like you got to make sure you're keeping good copies of the data. You got to be mindful about if it's going to be accessible from outside the home. You got to make sure your servers are up to date. You got to make sure they're segmented so that if there's a breach, it doesn't affect your whole home, or vice versa, which we saw with a certain password manager that we'll actually discuss later on. Anyways, yeah, it is one we recommend. It is a great choice of password manager. It's just, if you're looking for an individual, for you, for your family, if you're not a business person, business owner, we believe that there are better suited options. So again, B, solid choice, just maybe not the first one we would recommend. So our next one is Keeper. Keeper is another one that if you look up like best password managers, this one will pop up on the list. Just like Psono, it is aimed at companies primarily. There's a few things that are kind of working against it though. For one, it's not source available, which for the record, that is not the end all be all. For anyone who doesn't know and you're watching this video, source available means they publish the source code so you can look at it, you can verify that it does what it does. If you find any vulnerabilities, you can report them. And also I believe does not have a free tier, if I remember correctly. It's like $4 a month, which is certainly not terrible. And look at that, there's a 30% off on their website, but definitely not crazy expensive. It just, for the individual, doesn't really bring anything interesting to the table, we feel like. Kind of comes with all this other stuff you don't need, file storage, data breach alerts. For the record, a lot of these things will do that. See, look at that. They're charging $27 a year for that. But a lot of these password managers offer that, some of them for free, and all they're really doing is checking Have I Been Pwned's database. So it's not the worst. I'm going to knock it down to C just because, again, no free tier, not source available, not quite as good as Psono. All right, next up we got 1Password, and this one's going to be a little bit controversial. So 1Password is, again, it is another one of the password managers that we do recommend at Privacy Guides. Most password managers do also target businesses. A lot of companies having a business-focused arm is not really a bad idea, to be honest, because they can make a ton of money off businesses. For better or worse, once a company gets into a certain ecosystem, moving them out of that ecosystem is nightmarish. And so it can be really frustrating and really a challenge. Like basically the company has to screw up really, really hard to get their clients, their business clients to switch. So it's recurring revenue. It's usually hundreds or thousands of users at a time. So for the record, it's not bad if somebody has like a business to business arm. It's just a question of how well is the personal stuff too. They can be aimed at businesses, but do they put the same amount of effort into the personal side? So 1Password does have a few things that are not very popular with people. Most notably, it is not source available. You can go request their audits and take a look at them, but it's kind of a difficult process. And as you saw just here, they're not free. They don't have any free tier. They are pretty affordable. So this might be a little controversial, but I'm actually going to put 1Password in the S tier. Even though it does have, like, again, it's not free, it's not, it's not source available, but 1Password has some really awesome features that I think are just kind of original. And even with some of the other source available ones that we do recommend, it doesn't imitate those. For one, I'm told that the autofill is just immaculate and works great, especially if you're on a Mac, which I know I'm recording this on a Mac, but I don't typically use a Mac day to day. I kind of just use it for these videos. But I'm told that it integrates so well with the Mac ecosystem. Travel mode is actually something I think is super cool, and I would love to see more password managers adopt this. Basically, when you travel, you can set it so that only certain logins show up. If you get searched at the border and Border Patrol is like, hey, open your phone and show me, you can show them, like, here's my Starbucks card login, here's my, like, company email login. Like, you can choose what things visibly show up and then hide everything else. So they can't see your Proton Mail login, your Tuta login. They can't see your, your Signal backup code. Like, it just doesn't even show up. So that is definitely super, super cool. And I would love to see more people use that. They also have, like, a very interesting setup with the way that they do their encryption, where it says right here, there's 3 things required to decrypt your data. There's an account password, there's a secret key, and then there's the encryption on the data itself. The secret key is something that, as far as I know, other password managers have not replicated. It does admittedly, I would think, take ease of use down just a touch. If you install it on a new device, that is now like an additional piece of information. It's almost like a backup code, like those backup codes that don't change, but it also provides an additional layer of protection. Experts have praised 1Password and the secret key architecture, and they've got a page here you can see that explains all about how it works. It's just a really interesting architecture that adds additional security. So again, I understand putting it in S tier may be a little unpopular for some people, but they have a very strong security track record. A lot of experts have vouched for them. They get audits done regularly, and they just have, like, a lot of really cool features and security. I know I keep using the word architecture, but security architecture that just we don't see in a lot of other password managers, unfortunately. Again, let me know if you think they should be an A and why you think that is. All right, so next up we have Proton Pass, and this is going to be another controversial one. Proton is kind of one of those companies that is very polarizing. A lot of people either love Proton and think they're awesome and they have really good products and they're really clean. Some people are convinced that they're a honeypot. And to be fair, some people are kind of more in the middle, like, yeah, they're pretty cool, but there's plenty of things that annoy me about them. But Proton Pass is, I think, probably the newest entry on this list. It just came out a couple of years ago. In my opinion, they have made really good strides. This is one of the criticisms a lot of people will give them, is Proton has this reputation of releasing a product even if it's not fully ready, because their logic is like, why wait? And we can get feedback sooner and know what to prioritize and stuff like that. So Proton Pass is probably missing some of the things that you would expect from a password manager. It's caught up quite a bit. I know it's added quite a few things. I know one of the first things they did as well was like get a security audit, and I do believe they published the source code, but don't quote me on that. If they haven't yet, I know they plan to. One nice thing is that it's free, and again, this is something that different people feel differently about. One nice thing about Proton in general is that it comes with a whole suite of products. You know, you get Proton Mail, you get Proton VPN, you get Proton Drive. Proton is trying to be like a Google replacement kind of thing, which again, some people don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. Some people really like that convenient ecosystem that everything just works together really well. So to each their own. If you like the ecosystem, Proton Pass has that going for it. If you prefer to keep your eggs in different baskets and you're already using a Proton product like Drive or VPN or Mail or whatever, then Proton Pass may not be right for you. Proton Pass is one of the password managers that we recommend. And I think I'm going to put this one in the A tier, just because, again, it's very early on. It's still getting feature parity, but it definitely deserves to be up there, I think, because, again, this is a big company. Generally speaking, they're pretty well reputed. People generally trust them. They've got resources. They're not going to like suddenly disappear tomorrow. Open source, audited, free tier. Lots of good reasons to like them, just not right for everybody. All right, so next up here, I have a little notebook icon, and that is exactly what it looks like. This is a notebook. I am referring to an actual physical notebook where you write stuff down. Every time we make a video about passwords and password managers, somebody always leaves that comment. Somebody is like, I have a notebook, I write everything down, and that's perfect, and that's ultimately data breach proof and this, that, and the other. So I wanted to address that one. Honestly, I don't really have any complaints with doing that. I think there are a few caveats. Like, first of all, you're absolutely right. If you go down to the store and you buy a notebook in cash and you use that to write down all your passwords, that is never going to get hacked, at least not remotely, right? That is not going to be submitting any analytics or telemetry back to people. But, I mean, it's certainly not perfect, right? Because what if there's a house fire, God forbid, and your notebook burns up? What if you get raided and the notebook gets confiscated for whatever reason? You know, the police got the address wrong and it was supposed to be your neighbor, but instead they raided your house. That stuff does happen. You're also giving up a lot of convenience features, which also double as security features. Like with 1Password, I mentioned autofill. Autofill is not just a convenience feature. It's also a layer. It's obviously not like the layer, but it's a layer of security against like a phishing attack. If you have a password manager, and let's say you've got your, discuss.privacyguides.net, let's say you've got your login saved there. If you go to that web address and it doesn't autofill, that should at very least make you pause and double check like, oh, am I at the right address? Was this a phishing link? Something like that. Which, for the record, you may still be at the right address. I mean, my autofill goofs up all the time. It happens. Troy Hunt, actually, from Have I Been Pwned, he had a data breach and he mentioned that in his post, that's one of the reasons he fell for it was because that happens all the time. But it is worth noting that that is a security feature that hopefully at very least will make you pause and double check like, okay, I'm in the right place. My password manager is just being goofy. You do give up the ability to easily make backups. You could absolutely have like a second notebook that you store at a friend's house or something. That's totally an option. But then every time you update a password or you add a new password, you have to go and get that backup and update that too. And the last thing I'll point out is like randomness. You need to make sure that the passwords you're generating are truly random. And there's plenty of ways to do that offline. There's like, EFF's Diceware password thing. Just make sure that if you're going this route, you're definitely making the passwords as random as possible so that you're not falling into that trap where you think that it's random because you just picked a bunch of words off the top of your head, but it's really not as random as you think it is. So I'm going to put this one in D just because it's better than nothing and it is really good. But I think for the average person, I think the trade-offs aren't worth it. And again, if it works for you, I'm not telling you not to do it. Please, again, it's better than nothing. But for the average person, for most people watching this video, I think it's more cost than it's worth. I don't think it justifies the threat model. I wonder who's going to end up on this F tier down here. Dun, dun, dun. All right, next up, we have one that should be fun, which is the Apple Passwords app. So Apple Passwords is, again, kind of new. In fact, some of you guys may not even know this is a thing. Apple actually spun off their own password app, their own password manager, which obviously integrates really well with Apple products. You can view and save passwords, passkeys. You can ask Siri to find passwords. I think it will check for data breaches. You can store credit card information, all the basic stuff that you would be able to do. And it's Apple. Like, you got to admit, Apple has a very polished look, even if you're not a fan of the Apple look. Like, it's very polished, it's very clean, it's very well done. So, I see the appeal. But we're going to give this one a D. And again, goes back to better than nothing. If you're an Apple user, I would rather you be using Apple passwords than just reusing the same garbage password everywhere. But, I think it's important to note that there's a lot of limitations with this. For one, it's not source available. We can't check for vulnerabilities. We can't be sure that everything was, even if we assume Apple's acting in good faith, we can't ensure that everything was implemented properly. Specifically, what bugs me about these kind of things is the vendor lock-in. Here at Privacy Guides, we recommend Graphene OS. We think it is like the best golden standard for a phone. If you wake up one day and you say, you know what, you're right, I'm ready to take my privacy and security to the maximum level for a phone and I want to switch to Graphene OS, switching from Apple passwords, I mean, I'm sure you can do it. I'm sure there's a way to export your passwords and your passkeys or whatever and import them. But it's not the same as if you're using one of these other third-party password managers and you just go buy the phone and download it, right? It's just not quite the same. It locks you into that vendor, which I'm sure is very intentional on Apple's part. I don't think they're ever going to release this app for Android or Windows or anything like that. So again, it's better than nothing. Would definitely prefer you use it instead of just reusing crappy passwords. But even if you are an Apple user, I would say to go with one of these other options just to keep the door open down the road, make it one less obstacle if you decide to switch later. I'm sure there's a lot of people right now that are like, bro, I hate Android. Like, it's just so ugly. I know I'm losing a lot of privacy, but I can't give it up. Like, you never know, man. You never know what Apple might do in a few years. Oh my God. Okay, I wanted to mix it up a little bit, and I just realized that I actually forgot one. So let me see if I can import this real quick. Next up, I want to do Dashlane. Dashlane is another popular one. I gotta be honest, Dashlane is just Dashlane. There's nothing really special about them. Again, their whole thing is advertising to companies, but they do have personal plans. They do have family plans. So it comes with crap you don't need, like a VPN and AI-powered scam protection. So yeah, okay. I don't know how much I trust that, but it's whatever. Dashlane, I'm going to give Dashlane a C because it's another one of those, like, it's better than Apple passwords because it's not locking you into a vendor. It's better than the notebook because it has the autofill and it has the convenience features. But there's nothing really that makes it stand out, that it's like, oh wow, like it's not source available. There's not even a free tier. It's just, it is what it is. You can do much worse than Dashlane, but nothing really special about it that stands out. Okay, with that said, I'll go ahead and go back to the web browsers here, and that's kind of why I wanted to mix it up. So this is my little logo that I have here for web browsers. Web browsers, I'm also going to put in a D for very similar reasons to Apple passwords. For one, I mean, depending on which password manager you go with. So I'm talking about the password manager built into the web browser, and that includes Chrome, Brave, Firefox. For one, there is that vendor lock-in. Like, again, if you're a Brave person and you decide, like, you know what, I want to switch to Molvad browser or Firefox or whatever, LibreWolf, well, now you're stuck. Or you have to export everything and pick another password manager. So there's that vendor lock-in. In my personal opinion / experience, I find that it's one of those things where, like, what is the tool built for first? You know, a browser is built first to be a browser, and then they kind of tack the password manager on there as an afterthought. And so usually it's just not as good as a dedicated password manager. And it's free. You know, again, I want to reiterate, better than nothing, but it doesn't have the same level of security. It doesn't have the same level of convenience and quality of life features. So yeah, I'm not personally a fan of them. I also know, and to be fair, I think it's kind of a nuanced thing, but there is malware that can steal passwords and browser data. It can steal history, it can steal passwords, credit cards, session tokens, like things that are stored in your browser. And I understand that, like, once you have malware on your device, that's kind of an all bets are off sort of thing. But I just, again, could be wrong. Let me know in the comments. But from what I've seen from the articles, we don't typically see that same level of malware theft or that same level of data theft happening with a dedicated password manager. You know, usually it's like it steals data from the browser, not from your password manager extension or anything like that. So I feel like they're not as strong as, again, a dedicated password manager. There's the whole vendor lock-in. And depending on which one you go with, it may not be open source. The encryption may not be very well implemented. I've heard some people claim that Google's password manager isn't encrypted. I don't know how true that is, but again, better than reusing the same crap password everywhere, but not that hard to get a much, much better experience. All right, so now let's go to Roboform. This is another one that shows up when you look up, like, best password managers. So the one nice thing I can say is they do have a free tier for personal and family. Their premium is pretty cheap, $20 a year. That's, well, $30 a year. $20 is the introductory, but $50 a year for family. I think that's about on par with Bitwarden. Don't quote me, but I will say, though, looking at the free plan here, it's not accessible on all devices, so that's kind of crappy. I'm gonna have to give this one a C, just because it is better than, again, notebook, Apple passwords, web passwords. It's got a more dedicated feature set. It is a more dedicated product. It's a step above these guys, but not really by much. And actually, that'll bring us to LastPass. All right, so I'm actually not going to put them in the F tier, and I'll explain why later. LastPass I'm putting in the D tier, and that is because LastPass, as I'm sure you guys know, had this massive data breach back in 2022. And companies have data breaches. That's not necessarily a deal breaker, but the way they responded to it was pretty crappy. So the way this breach happened was there was an employee at home. This employee had a Plex server, and the Plex server became compromised. Like, a hacker got into it somehow. And then from there, the attacker was able to pivot to the other devices on the network, which included that employee's company computer, which is what gave them access. And the attacker was able to steal tons and tons of LastPass user vaults. First of all, I think it was back with Psono. Remember I said that there are considerations when you self-host anything. So the company computer probably should have been a little bit more hardened. It's a little worrying that things can just pivot on the network. But then things got really bad from there, because then what happened was LastPass disclosed this incident at like 4 p.m. on December 23rd, which was a Friday. They purposely announced that disclosure so that it would coincide with the Christmas break. And they knew that most people would either not be paying attention or like maybe they'd get back to work on Wednesday and, it would just be buried under all the other emails and stuff. It was just very much an attempt to sweep it under the rug. And they tried to downplay it at first. Like we had this incident. And then the more they started like opening up about what was going on, the more there was like, I don't want to get too deep into this because this is not this kind of video, but some of these people who had their vault stolen had been users for years and years and years. And LastPass was not improving the security algorithms, the encryption algorithms on those vaults as time went on. I'm grossly oversimplifying for all the people who are typing in the comments right now, I know. It turned out there were parts of the vault that weren't even encrypted, like the login link. If you save, the login to Amazon.com, which once you start thinking about it, it's like, well, that could potentially help people make good phishing attacks, right? If I know if you use Coinbase versus Kraken or Teams versus Zoom, like that helps me craft more convincing emails, phishing emails. So yeah, it turned into this huge cluster. It went on for months. I think there's been like millions of dollars in cryptocurrency thefts linked to this. Because again, the notes section I don't think was encrypted either, and that was where usually people will store like seed phrases and recovery codes and stuff like that. So yeah, it was bad that it happened in the first place, but then their response and everything we learned about it from then has just been terrible. Some people will make the argument that like, oh, maybe they've learned from their mistakes and maybe they've improved things, and maybe they have. But personally, we have other options. I mean, I'm halfway through the list, a little over halfway, and look at how many other options we have above LastPass. Like, I would not, in good conscience, recommend going with LastPass if I were you. So next up, we have Passbolt. Passbolt is interesting. They don't get a ton of attention, I think, in this space. You see their name floating around here and there. Again, it is primarily aimed at companies. They do have a self-hosted version. They do have a cloud version. It is open source. Again, you can self-host it. I don't really have anything against Passbolt. I think it's a pretty neat project. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to put it in the C tier for one reason alone, and that's because if I saw correctly in my research, Passbolt does not support passkeys, which is really not good. We are big proponents of passkeys back here. I know we talked about that in our password manager video. Passkeys are supposed to solve a lot of the issues with passwords. They're basically, to oversimplify, they're like a key pair, private key, public key. You literally can't fall for a phishing site because it won't like ping for your key. Some of this stuff kind of goes over my head a little bit. I'm sure Jonah will leave a comment correcting me if I'm wrong on any of it. But, they're phishing resistant. It removes the need for the user to generate a password and hope that they generate a good password instead of just using a good one by default. So, some people don't like using them. Some people prefer using a password and two-factor, and that's totally fine. We're not saying you have to go with passkeys, but especially for the average person who may find this stuff a little bit difficult or kind of inconvenient. Like, passkeys are very one-click. They're very secure. They're really, really great for like your less tech-savvy friends and family. I will say it baffles me a little bit that they don't support passkeys when we're talking about a company-wide solution, because that is the place especially where you have so many people who just like, my normal password 1, my normal password 2, just to like get the IT guy off their back. So you think this would be the place where they definitely want to start supporting passkeys, but unfortunately they don't. So here we are. All right, so next up we have Bitwarden. And before I tell you guys where I'm going to put that one, I do want to do the obligatory shout out that Privacy Guides is 501c3 nonprofit, totally funded by viewers like you guys. We don't have any sponsorships. We don't have any affiliate links. We don't run any ads, anything like that. So if you're finding this video helpful, definitely go to privacyguides.org/donate, or you can click on the little heart icon here, which will take you to the same page. You can become a member. I think it's about $10 a month, gets you early access to videos, priority during our live stream Q&A, some members only content we've started pumping out recently, just little things, bonus sections in our interviews and stuff like that. You can pay with cryptocurrency like Monero. You can pay one time if you want. Definitely, I mean, we need your support to keep making videos like this one. This one and our scripted ones, our deep dive ones. I mean, we're trying to really keep it varied and interesting, tutorials and history videos and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, if you're finding this helpful, please donate, please support, and again, let us know what you think of this format. But I'll remind you that at the end. So let's get back to Bitwarden. So once again, Bitwarden is one of the ones that we recommend here at Privacy Guides. Bitwarden, I mean, for the most part, I think we have really good things to say about it. One of the best things I think we can say is that Bitwarden's free tier is super generous. I know they're not showing it here. They're trying to like nudge you towards a free tier, but oh yeah, here it is. Create a free account, which it does say here, always free. They have no plans to get rid of the free account, or at least that's what they claim at this time. And it's pretty generous. I mean, you can use it on as many devices as you want. You can have as many entries as you want. You will be missing some of the more advanced stuff, like there's an integrated authenticator. There's an emergency access thing, which I am a huge fan of. Actually, when the whole LastPass thing happened that I mentioned earlier, open source password managers like Bitwarden, everybody went to go double check them to be like, oh no, are they doing this too? And I distinctly remember actually somebody opened a thing where they noticed like, hey, Bitwarden's cryptography could be a little better. It's not bad, but we could upgrade to this new thing called Aragon 2. And Bitwarden took that in and went ahead and upgraded it. And I think it's optional in case you have like an older device. You don't have to use it, but they do support passkeys. They integrate with alias email providers like Simple Login, Addy, I think even Firefox Relay. That does take a little bit of tinkering to get working, but huge fan of Bitwarden. We're going to give this one an A right next to Proton Pass. And the only reason it's not getting an S tier is because, again, like 1Password just has that additional security architecture and the travel mode. And like Bitwarden's great. Bitwarden's got everything that everyone would need, or most people would need, but it's just, 1Password just has those few things that really push them over the edge. So, but don't worry, we're not done yet. We got 3 more. So the next one we're going to talk about here is Enpass. And Enpass actually, believe it or not, is kind of interesting. So there is no free plan, unfortunately, or at least not that I could find. And they are not open source either. They are not source available. But I mean, to be fair, like $2 a month, $23, that's a pretty generous free plan, I think. Their family plan is actually even cheaper than Bitwarden. They do support passkeys, all that kind of cool stuff. What really struck me as interesting and unique about Enpass that you don't typically see is that Enpass is designed to be run on your own cloud. I think this is a little bit of a pro and con. So Enpass is basically designed to like, you get to pick where to store the vault. The way it's designed, what they're hoping for is that you will take the vault and you will host it on your Nextcloud server, your Google Drive, your company's Azure, AWS, whatever. And that's something you don't typically see in password managers. They also have this cloudless sync thing, which is pretty cool that I know I've seen a lot of people in the privacy community say that they replicate this using other open source software like SyncThing, for example, is one of them. They might use something like KeePass, for example. And when they go out and about, their KeePass database, like they leave the house, it's on their phone, but then when they get home and they're on the same LAN, like all their devices sync up and they make sure that it's, and I mean, kind of like a normal cloud password manager, but just all handled on your local network, which is pretty interesting. I will say, me personally, and this is just a personal opinion, I am not a fan of this whole idea of like use your own supported cloud service, because I feel like that's just doing what a cloud-based password manager does with extra steps. Things like Bitwarden or 1Password, like you're using someone else's cloud at that point, right? To give some credit, like if I do it this way, if I run this off of Nextcloud, or theoretically, if I were to use an offline password manager and I store my vault in, Proton Drive or whatever, it's kind of achieving the same thing, just with extra steps. And me personally, I think for the average person, especially if you're using someone reputable like Bitwarden, 1Password, Proton, I think you're kind of just making more work for yourself for no reason. But I will say, again, that like everything syncs on LAN, local network, like how Enpass does, I don't think most people need to do that. I think it's a little extra. And especially if you travel a lot, I could definitely see how that would potentially cause issues and things might get out of sync faster than you would plan. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like this, especially this like cloudless sync thing, I feel like is really unique and really interesting. I feel like you don't see that a lot. I feel like they're a little bit more interesting than normal. So I'm actually going to put these guys in a B tier. I'm going to do a little bit better than C, because I think that is an interesting feature that they bring to the table. Again, they're still not open source. They still don't have a free tier. Like, I think there are better choices, but I think that feature alone makes them really interesting. It is a unique take on things, and I have to give them that. Okay, so next up is KeePassXC. I'm going to talk about KeePassXC specifically, but I want it to be noted for anyone who doesn't know, KeePassXC only works on Mac, Windows, and Linux. For Android, you need something like KeePassDX. For iOS, we recommend KeePassium. And there are other KeePass clients, but KeePassXC is our favorite just because it's very well developed, feature rich, cross platform. Out of all of the different clients, in our opinion, it's the best one for desktop. But again, there's plenty of others. If you actually go to the KeePass website, it's got a whole list of clients and you can go check them out there. But we're going to kind of lump KeePassXC, DX, and KeePassium. We're going to kind of lump all those into one. But just know that we're mainly focusing on KeePassXC because there are some slight differences between them. I'm going to make some of you guys really happy here. I'm going to go ahead and put this one in S tier along with 1Password. And there's a few reasons for that. I mean, first of all, is that like you can't, again, this is like the notebook thing. Like you almost can't get any more private or secure. Like KeePassXC can work totally offline. My day-to-day computer is a Cubes computer, and I have a quote-unquote air-gapped. It's a VM, but it doesn't have any network connectivity. I have an air-gapped cube that is just for my KeePass vault. That's about as secure as you can get other than the notebook. But, you know, the nice thing about what I've done is, unlike the notebook, even if the cops take it, it's still encrypted. You know, I can still put a strong password on it or passphrase. I will say it's very much for advanced users. If you're just getting into privacy and you're watching this video and you're like, oh, KeePass, perfect, I'm going to go do that. Slow down, because there are a few considerations. I mean, for one, the user interface does look a little bit dated. I know we said here on the website that it's very modern. I don't think we were talking about the user interface when we said that. You also have to make sure you keep backups. You know, I was talking about self-hosting everything, and it's the same principle. With KeePass, you're basically self-hosting it. If you do not keep good backups, you can lose your vault with all your passwords in it, and you're up a creek because there is no cloud to sync from. On that note, you have to be very careful when you're keeping backups, or if you're going to keep it on multiple devices, because if things fall out of sync, if you've got a copy of your vault on your computer and a copy of your vault on your phone, and then you update something on your phone, you need to make sure you update it on your computer because it won't automatically update. And this goes back into what I was saying a minute ago with Enpass, where, you know, some people are like, oh, I keep it in my Nextcloud vault with Cryptomator, or I keep it in Proton Drive. And I'm like, at that point, you're kind of just recreating Proton, 1Pass, Bitwarden, or you could do the sync thing that some people do where, you know, it'll automatically copy. If you're really good about like, I only have the one vault and that's where I modify things, and then it just copies the newest copy when I get home, like that's a way to do it. But it, again, my point is like, this is a more advanced thing. So it's not right for everybody, but I mean, man, it's hard to beat as far as privacy and security. All right. And last but not least, we have NordPass. This one's probably going to be a little controversial no matter where I put it. Oh no, I can't put it back down at the bottom. Not cool, bro. Not cool. Okay, so I'll spoil it. We're going to put this one in the B. I know that's really, really controversial, but there's a few reasons for that. We're going to be real. Nord is not the best company out there in terms of company ethics. They are kind of the poster child for heavily exaggerated marketing. You know, they're the ones always running the VPN ads that'll make you anonymous and hacker-proof online and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, they do have a free tier, not available on multiple devices, but it only gets you the essential features. It's fairly affordable, at least for the first 12 months. The price definitely, I mean, $70, that's a lot more than Bitwarden. I definitely recommend Bitwarden more. But, you know, they're also like a big company. They're a very, very well-known company. You know, they're not going to disappear tomorrow. They're not going to stop development. XChaCha20, I think, is actually a pretty secure encryption standard, if I understand correctly. Don't quote me on that. I'm not the cryptography expert. Bro, Steve Turberry is a comedy musician. See, this is what I mean. Like, I love Stevie T, for the record. I'm not mocking him, but like, he's not a tech expert. Why are we taking his word on this stuff? If I want to know what guitar to buy, like, yeah, Stevie T is great, but I digress. If you like metal, you should go watch his video about Gent. It's like 10 years old at this point, but it's how to pronounce Gent or something like that. If Gent was in the dictionary, totally worth it. Highly recommend. We just have to give it a B because it does bring things to the table. You know, it's all these other things that ended up in the C tier. The reason they end up in the C tier is because they don't really bring anything unique to the table, right? They're not really, like, they're kind of these smaller companies. They're like, you sign up, you get an okay password manager that does the same thing every other password manager does. Nord, at very least, you know, we can rely on it having a good a big name company behind it that's not going to go out of business anytime soon, that I'm assuming has had audits. See, they publish about their security architecture, they publish their white paper, they get audited, they have a bug bounty program. I don't know, B, maybe C. B, maybe C. I'll accept either of those. I just feel like if we took all these other A tier, S tier, Psono, if we took all those off the table, I personally have to say I would be more inclined to use Nord than any of these other ones, in my opinion. But I don't know. I'll accept a C tier. Let me know what you guys think. Where should I have left that in the comments? But actually, on that note, because I know some of you guys are probably going to be like, put them in the F and put LastPass there too. There's a reason we chose to leave an F tier in here. The F tier would be not using any kind of password manager or password system. Again, we have a whole video that I highly recommend you guys check out about password managers and where they came from, why we need them, why passwords suck, everything you need to know about passwords. But basically, humans are not good at coming up with secure passwords. And even if we remove all the ridiculous, like uppercase, lowercase, this long, mother's maiden name, sacrifice a goat to Satan, even if we remove all of that stuff from the password requirements, people still just kind of default towards reusing the same password. And, in 2019, Facebook got caught storing passwords in plain text. And that was Facebook. Like, that is a company that can absolutely afford to hire good security engineers and do this right, and they still cheaped out on it. So even if you do have, and I've run into a lot of people who do this, they're like, oh, well, I use the same password everywhere, but it's like 25 characters and it's got all the uppercase, lowercase, all that. It's like, yeah, cool. And the one time Facebook does this, or Netflix has a data breach, or, LastPass is using this ancient, outdated hashing algorithm. Like, all it takes is that one mistake, and now your one password that's really good is out there. And attackers will use credential stuffing to try and just, if they get a hold of that password, well, let me try it everywhere. Let me try it on Amazon. Let me try it on Bank of America. Let me, so it's so important to not reuse passwords. And that's really what a password manager is all about, is having somewhere secure and convenient that you can hopefully generate. That's a pretty standard feature these days. You can generate a good, strong password, but you can also make sure every account has a new password. And one of the sources we cited in that password video said that these days, everyone has, or most people have, over 100 accounts. Some of the sources I saw put it at over 200. I mean, the numbers are all over the place, but everybody pretty much agreed it's in the triple digits. And that's just an unrealistic number of accounts for you to remember. And especially if there's some you only use like once every 6 months. Think about taxes. You go to do your taxes, you only use that once a year or for like 1 month out of the year. So it's really important to have a system. And, even these things here in the D tier, even LastPass, even Apple Passwords, even the browser, even the notebook, like, that is still better than just reusing one password everywhere, even if it is one really strong password, because all it takes is one company not hashing it or having a data breach or whatever, and now it's out there. So that is why we have an F tier. So if there's anybody you think deserves to go in the F tier, like LastPass or NordPass, I disagree. And that is why, because I still think that's better than just reusing one password. But yeah, like I said, I'm sure some of you guys disagree. Some of you guys probably think maybe one password should be in the A because it's not source available. Maybe the notebook should be in the C. Like, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Politely, we do read the comments. We're people too. We have feelings. So, but yeah, would love to hear your guys' thoughts. What would you have placed differently? Or which ones have you not heard of? Like, what feature did I miss? Because I'll be honest, some of these, like Keeper, Dashlane, I've never used them myself. I've looked into them briefly, but is there a feature that I missed that you're like, no, actually this deserves to be in the B tier because it's got this really cool feature? So yeah, I think that's all it got. Again, as you can see, this was clearly not a scripted video. Oh, this is going to be fun to edit later, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and let us know. I think we're going to try and do some more tier list videos in the future. If you guys enjoyed this kind of less scripted, off the cuff thing, let us know. If you're like, nope, go back to using a script, go back to the teleprompter, let us know about that too. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Again, please support Privacy Guides if you can, and go check out that password video if you haven't. I'm pretty proud of it. I think it came out pretty well. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.